All right, we start tonight with another stinging setback for the special counsel, Robert Mueller. President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is saying tonight Robert Mueller will not seek a presidential indictment. Now, it's obvious why Mueller won't even try, because, as we've been telling you, he never had a legal leg to stand on. Now, DOJ guidelines clearly state that a sitting president cannot be indicted. Not to mention Mueller doesn't have a reason to even do so in the first place. Mueller has zero evidence of collusion, has only been focused on the so-called thought crimes of the president, and it's not a crime to have thoughts. Rudy Giuliani also reacting to tomorrow being the one-year anniversary of Mueller's corrupt investigation. Here is part of his interview. Will air tonight with Laura Ingraham. Take a look at this.
What is your optimal timeline for this to wrap up?
They should do it today. I mean, as soon as possible. I think that they have the facts from which they can write their report. If you're going to write a fair report, fine, write it. If you're going to write an unfair report, write it, and we will combat it. We're ready to rip it apart.
The former New York City mayor, he's right about this. He also told our own Laura Ingraham about the damage that this investigation is doing to this country. And here's what he said.
When you look at all the main flashpoints, the Trump Tower meeting, the Stormy Daniels payment, the raid on Manafort, the raid on Cohen, is there any one part of that that concerns you more than other parts of that?
Yeah, their inability to reach a conclusion that is obvious, and their unwillingness to recognize the damage this does to our country all over the world. This was engineered by Comey.
We're going to have much more on this in just a minute with Joe DeGeneva, our own Greg Jarrett, and Laura's full interview with Rudy Giuliani airs tonight right after this program. But first, on the foreign policy front tonight, President Trump, he's not blinking in the standoff with Kim Jong-un and North Korea. Now, remember, Kim Jong-un is now trying to act tough. His ego's been bruised. He's threatening to withdraw from the summit in Singapore. North Korea is also saying that denuclearization will not be on the table. Yeah? Well, President Trump responded by stating directly that his peace through strength policies continues. Take a look.
Can the Korean be salvaged?
We haven't been notified at all. We'll have to see. We haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything. We will see what happens. Whatever it is.
Well, obviously, the liberal media in a frenzy over this development, because think about it, for them to succeed is for the president to fail. For the Democrats to succeed is for the country to fail. But the president is standing firm on denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And National Security Advisor John Bolton is also saying this is just part of the game that North Korea always plays, except unlike Clinton, we're not trying to bribe the guy.
The question is whether this really is a sign that that they're not taking our objective of denuclearization seriously. You know, Kim Jong-un told South Korean President Moon Jae-in at their April the 27 inter-Korean summit that he agreed to denuclearization. And so if they're walking back from it, we'll find out. I think Sarah Sanders said this morning pretty much what the president's thinking is if they're ready to meet, we're ready to meet. If they're not ready to meet, then they won't meet.
And we have the 3 hostages back. He's not firing missiles. He crossed the DMZ. Okay, so far a win. Now what's happening here is the policy of trust but verify. President Trump, he's not giving up anything with North Korea, which is why he keeps saying, well, we'll see what happens. Now Kim Jong-un, well, he's the one that has made every concession. He gave up the hostages. We didn't have to appease him with a plane load of cash and other currencies or $150 billion like Obama did with Iran. So the ball is in Kim Jong-un's court. He wants to talk. He wants a deal. He wants a better life for his people. President Trump's ready to listen. North Korea will not be allowed to threaten the world and build nuclear weapons. That's a fact. And the president, he's made it crystal clear. All right, we're also getting clarity on another major story tonight. Remember how for the past year, the left-wing media, the Democrats, promising that Trump Tower meeting was somehow the big smoking gun of Russia collusion? Okay, tonight, in spite of media reports, we now have the evidence it was a total dud. Now, the Senate Judiciary Committee, they released thousands of pages of the testimony, several key players at the meeting. The main takeaway is this. They all thought it was a waste of their time. They were talking about adoption, the McGinsky Act. No dirt on Hillary Clinton came through. And by the way, if it did, it wouldn't be illegal, and we'll explain that tonight. Now, from all accounts, this meeting quickly went off the rails, eventually focused in on topics like Russian adoption and Russian adoption. It's a nothing burger. And the media, they've been hyping this as a cruise missile. that was going to take down the Trump administration. Donald Trump Jr., he testified he was skeptical going into the meeting and that his suspicions were quickly justified. And Donald Trump Jr. also said that his father, President Trump, had nothing at all to do with it in any way, shape, matter, or form. And despite all of this wild and false speculation, it's nothing. The Trump Tower meeting isn't the only breaking news story that actually is embarrassing to the destroy Trump media. New York Times, now this is an amazing story. They hate President Trump. They're now basically tonight confirming everything we have been telling you regarding the biggest abuse scandal in the history of the country. Now, it's not a mea culpa from the liberal New York Times. Frankly, it was inadvertent, which is probably why the so-called paper of record, they're kind of playing cleanup. Now, this was their original headline today. This is pretty amazing. A secret mission, a code name, and anxiety inside the early days of the FBI's Trump investigation. Well, they changed the headline. Code name Crossfire Hurricane, the secret origins of the Trump administration. Great to know somebody in the FBI likes the Rolling Stones. Okay, why would they change it? Let me explain what happened in this article. It's a long article. The Times explains how the FBI opened a top secret, completely unconventional operation into the Trump campaign. By the way, only days after they rigged the investigation into Hillary, and the same exact players. Now, the details were closely guarded by FBI officials. This all happened days, just days, after the same people put the fix in with the exoneration before investigation of Hillary Clinton, rigging it knowing she committed felonies and obstruction of justice. In other words, everything we've been exposing. So to break it down this way, in the summer of 2016, the FBI sends agents to London. They interview an Australian diplomat, Alexander Downer. The Times describes this interview as, quote, diplomatic protocol, highly unusual. Now, remember, Downer's the guy that got drunk one night with some guy, and I thought I knew everybody in the Trump campaign, George Papadopoulos. Never heard of him. The Trump advisor, nobody heard of. And during that night out, while they're drinking, they apparently gossiped like, I guess, mean girls about so-called dirt on Hillary Clinton. Downer then alerted the Australian intelligence agency, who then told their U.S. counterparts. 1, 2, 3, four-way hearsay. Now, this is massive. The Times is confirming that the FBI used four-way hearsay to launch an investigation, just like we've been telling you on the program. By the way, their timeline doesn't match up, and hearsay is never admissible, never mind four-way hearsay, in a court of law. So what the New York Times is proving is we've been right the entire time, and in the process of trying to cover up for their deep state friends and making excuses, they're actually exposing them. The Times and the rest of the media have been trying to get ahead of what is a massive scandal and protect the likes of Comey and McCabe and Strzok and Lynch and Page and everyone else. But they can't, because the facts, the evidence, the truth is finally coming out. And we have been promising you this, and so far what we've been uncovering is only the beginning. This is going to get a lot worse for all of these deep state actors before it ever gets better. Take a look at the side of your screen. James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Loretta Lynch, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, all at the center of this massive scandal. Comey's a liar and a leaker and probably broke the law in multiple ways. McCabe lied under oath multiple times. He could be facing criminal charges. Loretta Lynch, she tried to compromise the Clinton email investigation to get Comey to say it's not an investigation, it's only a matter. Then you have the FBI anti-Trump lovebirds, Strzok and Page. They routinely abuse the president verbally, attacking him in their text messages. And Strzok's fingerprints are all over everything. Now, we'll have more on that in just a second. Now, we have another big story for us to tell you about. The DOJ's attempt to slow walk, stonewall, obstruct Congress from ever seeing over 1.2 million documents about the Clinton email server investigation and the Russia witch hunt, which should be coming to an end. Congressman Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Ron DeSantis, they're now asking the president to use his executive authority, instruct the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who should be doing it on his own, to immediately turn over all documents that Congress has subpoenaed and has a constitutional right, co-equal branches of government, and a right to oversight and separation of powers. It is insane. It is unfair to you, the American people, that it has come to this, as Congress has the constitutional authority as part of their checks and balances. Rod Rosenstein, he has been concealing information, and then needlessly redacting key parts of these things in the name of national security that gets proven later not to have anything to do with national security. Rosenstein claims that, but it's not true. We've seen this lie play out. It's about protecting all of his friends. And meanwhile, he is conflicted from the very beginning of all this. And by the way, was a no-show for a closed-door hearing with the Senate Intelligence Committee today. I wonder why. Now, several Obama administration officials, they were quoted, but Comey dodged the entire thing. That's telling. Think about this. Congressman Jordan and DeSantis will join us in a few minutes. All right, one more thing tonight. A major follow-up on the former Obama official who at one point voted for the communist for president. This is how this man ever became the CIA director is breathtaking to me, John Brennan. Paul Sperry reporting that Brennan, who has repeatedly threatened President Trump, stay tuned, Mr. President, is now being exposed yet again as a liar, this time by his former colleagues. Now, last May, the former CIA director testified under oath the dossier didn't factor into the intelligence community's assessment of Russia election meddling. We've got the tape to prove it. Take a look.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications, petitions, pleadings?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
Mike Rogers and James Clapper are contradicting Brennan and saying that, yes, the dossier did play a role into what American intelligence agencies concluded, just like the Nunes memo and just like the Grassley-Graham memo. And on top of all of that, Sperry's reporting that Brennan handpicked Trump hater Peter Strzok to help work on this report. The same guy who put the fix in for Hillary and the same guy who trashed President Trump and text message after text message, and then a few days after exonerating and rigging the Hillary investigation, launches an investigation into Donald Trump. This deep state is one huge, giant, incestuous, corrupt swamp. And the more we learn that Peter Strzok is involved, his dirty fingerprints are over everything. Why does this guy even still have a job?
The investigation was not about the president. Jim Comey told the president that 3 times in their meetings, because that never has been the center of the investigation, nor is the role of the special counsel to go try to get an indictment of the president. His role was very clear, to see if there's any criminal activity among the campaign.
I want to know what the basis is for that statement by Rudy Giuliani and whether it was just an offhand view by one of the attorneys with the special counsel or whether it was a pronouncement by the special counsel himself.
Well, the breaking news today, Rudy Giuliani telling our own Fox News, John Roberts, that the special counsel will follow DOJ guidance that the president cannot be indicted. According to Giuliani, Mueller has no choice. And they're obviously pushing for this to come to a conclusion. What does this all mean? And let's look at what the Senate put out, the Senate Intelligence Committee and Judiciary Committee today. Let's bring in our panel here in New York. Former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, Caitlin Huey-Burns, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and Bill McGurn, mainstream columnist for the Wall Street Journal. Okay, Ari, your take on the news about Giuliani and what was said today.
Well, it's significant, but I wouldn't say the president's home free. So long as there is a special counsel investigating, no president is home free, and neither is the staff or the people who worked on the campaign. We have to wait for Bob Mueller, and only then are people home free. So it is significant because if Rudy Giuliani is right, and I'd like to hear this also from the Department of Justice and reinforcing what Giuliani said, then it's a significant sigh of release in the legal sense. But as we all know from what Bill Clinton went through, this is a political exercise in addition to a legal exercise. The real jeopardy also becomes Congress and the American people. If the American people think crimes were committed, it will hurt Republicans in elections and hurt the president in a re-elect. So a lot more needs to be said. Now, having said all that, I still see no evidence of collusion. I don't think there's been collusion from the start, and particularly the most pernicious, which would have been any involvement from the Trump people in hacking Hillary or Podesta's emails and disseminating them, which is what this was all about.
I mean, the other development was that the Bob Mueller team subpoenaed the social media director for Roger Stone today, and we also had the release of some Senate documents. Put it in perspective for us, Kayla.
Right. Well, the Senate documents really confirmed what the intelligence community said, which is that Russia meddled in the election to help Donald Trump. And now that's different from the House assessment. The House assessment, of course, the president was cheering on, but we've seen how different those committees have operated.
Senator Lankford tried to straighten that out about, you know, the difference in the committees, saying that they were looking at a specific area. But go ahead.
Sure. So I think the bigger point here, though, is that the Mueller investigation continues. The president it is hanging over his administration, certainly, and he has expressed frustrations with that. I am interested to see, though, how the public starts to react the longer that this goes on. You have seen in polling a slight dip in people's perceptions of the investigation. You've seen Republicans, by a large margin, really oppose that, and you've seen candidates running for office on the Republican ticket evoking the president's language that this is a witch hunt. So, you know, the president reshuffled his legal team because he didn't think that he was getting the best advice, and he wanted to have a more combative nature with the special counsel. And so we'll see kind of how Giuliani handles this in this new space.
Bill, your take?
Yeah, I think it was a good day for two reasons. One is I think it's good that the committees release their findings, because I think at the root of our system is political accountability, not criminal liability, but political accountability. And what the American people need is to know what happened. And the longer we go on, the more questions we have about our intelligence community and so forth. And it seems the less evidence there is about Donald Trump. So that's one side. The other thing, I think, Mr. Giuliani's comments, good. Think about what this says. The special prosecutor, who ostensibly works for the Justice Department, is going to follow Justice Department guidelines, and that's a news story. I find it incredible. I mean, I think the proper venue for most of this is Congress, and it's amazing to me that Congress has been stonewalled in its pursuit of many of the documents, and it's taken a backseat. We've kind of looked to criminalize political behavior when the first accountability should be to the American people through their elected representatives.
There's a lot we don't know about the start of the investigation, and there's a lot that just does not add up with that. I mean, there's a lot of people looking at it, but Capitol Hill hasn't come to that conclusion either.
No, and, you know, to quote Charles Krauthammer, this has been one of the greatest issues we've ever seen where it's all smoke and no fire. And this is what we keep chasing. And this is why I keep coming back to the core issue. Did anybody in the Trump campaign work with Russia to hack Hillary or Podesta's emails, or work with WikiLeaks to disseminate them? The answer is no, and nobody yet in 2 years, almost 3 years, has come out with any evidence to support either of those. If the answer is no, what are we doing? Where is this going? We're indicting people for financial fraud and other things having nothing to do with the president? Fine. It has nothing to do with the president.
Anything come from, in your assessment of that transcript, the 2,500 pages from the Trump Tower, struck you that Donald Trump Jr. didn't know whether his dad knew or not? What
right.
struck you?
Well, the interest in this meeting, of course, is because of the question of collusion, right? Whether Trump associates were amenable or open, receptive to any help from Russian agents. And what we don't know is what Donald Trump Jr. knew or didn't know. I thought it was interesting how he said that he didn't really talk to his father about it, but he also said in various exchanges that he didn't know or couldn't recall. And so I think this provides a more detailed assessment of that meeting, but still I think there are a lot of questions. I think the broader question, of course, is when will this wrap up and what will come of it? You've had lots of indictments on Russian meddling, of course, that the administration has acted on, but on the issue of collusion, you do have a lot of people asking, when is this going to be answered?
Final word on this, and I want to do a round on North Korea.
Yeah, well, you know, my saying is special counsel's corrupt. corrupt, independent counsels corrupt, absolutely. There's a reason we're at this stage and we're finding no evidence and we're going on. So it'd be nice if we do get to a conclusion. I agree with Caitlin. I think also a lot of people are getting tired, but they're not getting tired because of the search. They're getting tired that they're not seeing, as Ari says, any hard evidence. We keep sort of spinning our wheels. The pages today are sort of interesting. They give a lot more detail and granularity, but we knew from Donald Trump Jr.'s email what he went to this meeting to see and so forth, so I'm not sure materially it adds. And what we don't know, what we really don't know, is why and when the FBI launched the investigation. We know what they say, but we're not yet clear on why they
In the
actually did.
vacuum of all this, as Caitlin mentioned, the president's poll numbers are going up.
Yeah. Right. Well, they haven't found any of the evidence on the main attack against him. So, you know, you would expect that. Plus, if the economy's getting better, why wouldn't it go up?
Okay, North Korea. It looks like it's, you know, touch and go whether this summit's happening or not. Your thoughts? You've been around the block with the North Koreans. They don't really, you know, keep up with promises all the time.
I've been a cynic all along on this détente with North Korea because I've lived through it before. I've seen North Korea lie, deceive, say that they'll stop enrichment of uranium only to start developing plutonium to pursue a nuclear weapon. They say we got rid of our nuclear weapons, but then they have 50 more. They got rid of 10, they kept 50. This is North Korea. So I think President Trump should proceed with a military drill with South Korea. Do not back down. You back down 1 inch to the North Koreans, they will roll all over you. Be tough, be firm, and I expect if the summit goes on, be tough, be firm there. But the real issue is going to be the months and the years after an agreement, if there is one that's reached. Because the history is North Korea, they'll deceive us. So the pageantry of an agreement is not as important as North Korea actually doing what they say.
Does it happen?
Well, it's interesting because the president, it's very clear he wants to make some kind of deal here, right? He has driven in large part by being able to do things his predecessors weren't able to do. He says that himself. He's also, you know, invited conversations about the Nobel Peace Prize. So I think I'm wondering kind of how that plays into how North Korea is thinking about this, whether they can exert leverage knowing that the president wants this so badly.
Percentage, Singapore, June 12th.
Yeah, well, I think there will. I think there will be a meeting. I'd say 90%. I think that they'll meet because it's always in the North Koreans' interest to meet. They make an agreement that they don't frequently abide by. Look, I think Ari's right. We have to keep our eye on the ball. All right, the ball here is not letting them to get the capacity to strike the United States with a nuclear missile. In a way, it's Donald Trump's red line. And we're to where we are because he's been tough, and I think he should be tough. And I'm glad that John Bolton's there, and I'm with John Bolton. If we're going to have a deal, I'd rather a Libya-type deal than an Iran-type deal.
All right. Panel, thank you very much.